Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shushrusho Shaddadhanasya Vasudeva Kataruchihi Shyan Mahatsevaya Vipraha Punyatirtha Nishevanat. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Shrunvatam svakatah Krishnaha Punyashravana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhritsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nashta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Tada rajastamo bhavaha kamalobadayascha ye cheta etair anaviddam sitam sattve prasidati. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes completely happy. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. Thus, established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Vidyate hridaya grantish chidyante sarva samshayaha kshiyante chasya karmani drishta evatmanishvare. Thus, the knot in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the self as master. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya. Vishma Paramak Rajakacharya, also the 6th with AC, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Namajaya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sagaho, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Gaur, Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna, Gopa Gopida, Shama Kunda Radhako, Digga Digga Vardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Jamuna Tulsi, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ananda Koti, Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Go Premanandi, all glories to the Sam of the devotees, all glories to the Sam of the devotees, all glories to the Sam of the devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Guranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadane Nirvishesha Shunyamadi Paschatya Deshatadane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 11, Chapter 2, Verse 14. Atrapyuda haranti mam Ithihasam Puratanam Harshabanam cha samvadam Videhasya mahatmanaha. Atrapi. In this very matter, udaharanti is given as an example. Imam, this. Itihasam, historical account. Puratanam, ancient. Arshabanam, of the sons of Rishabha. Cha, and samvadam, conversation. Videhasya, with Janaka. Mahatmanaha, who was a great broad-minded soul. Translation: to explain the devotional service of the Lord's sages have related the ancient history of the conversation between the great soul, King Videha, and the sons of Rishabha. Purport: the words Itihasam Puratana, meaning ancient historical account are significant here. Srimad Bhagavatam is Nigama Kalpatar Galitam Phalam, the ripe fruit of the desired tree of Vedic knowledge. In the pages of the Bhagavatam, we find true historical narrations relating to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the liberation of conditioned souls. These historical accounts are not fiction or mythology, but describe the wonderful activities of the Lord and his devotees that took place in yugas previous to the advent of this puny age. Although mundane scholars have foolishly tried to depict the Bhagavatam as a mythological work or a recent creation, the actual fact is that Srimad Bhagavatam is a perfect transcendental literature, describing not only the entire situation of this universe, but also that which lies far beyond this universe in both the material and spiritual skies. If one seriously studies the Srimad Bhagavatam, he becomes the most learned intellectual man. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu desires that all pious persons become highly learned. By hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and then preach the glories of the Lord in a scientific way all over the world, it is essential that we hear these historical narrations, such as the conversation between the Navayogendras and King Videha, with complete faith and submission. Then, as stated in verse 12 of this chapter, even if our former life is filled with abominable activities, simply by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, we shall be promoted to the same transcendental status as the Lord and his pure devotees. This is the extraordinary power of Bhagavata history as contrasted with useless mundane historical accounts which ultimately serve no purpose. Although mundane historians justify their work on the plea that we have to learn from history, we can practically see that the world situation is now rapidly deteriorating into unbearable conflict and chaos, while so-called historians stand helplessly by. But the Bhagavata historians who have faithfully heard Srimad Bhagavatam can give perfect and potent instructions for the restoration of a peaceful and blissful world. Therefore, those who are inclined to enrich their intellectual life through the study of history should educate themselves in historical narrations of Srimad Bhagavatam. This will bring them the perfection of intellectual and spiritual life. Translation: to explain the devotional service of the Lord, sages have related the ancient history of the conversation between the great soul King Videha and the sons of Rishabha. So this is just an introductory verse to the describing the upcoming conversation and the knowledge that it contains. So the subject is Bhagavata Dharma, which is another name for devotional service or bhakti. So the ultimate discussion will be about bhakti. So that is very significant compared to other things. But to do so, they, let's say, use some historical example. Now the conversation of itself is not an example, but the mode in which the information or knowledge is given is through some historical incident. So in that sense, it is an illustration. So this incident is called Ithihasam. So often the word is used to indicate a class of literatures which include the Mahabharata and Ramayana. So literally it means histories, but of course it's more than just histories, because these are intimately connected with the Supreme Lord. And the Ithihasas or the histories are actually spiritual histories. Of course, within many other works like Puranas, we do find histories also. We have a whole lineage of dynasties from Swayambhuva Manu up until into the future as well. But the Ithihasa as a type of literature is a little bit different, because it contains many different stories and histories. At the same time, it has certain characteristics that make it into an epic. So one, of course, is they're very long. So Mahabharata is a huge work, and Ramayana is a huge work. And they, of course, recount the history of the world from the spiritual viewpoint. And within that, we get many teachings through the illustrations of history, the examples of different personalities and devotees and kings, etc. So, and we often get within these Ithihasas, we'll get whole sections of teachings. So that is how we get the Bhagavad Gita in the Mahabharata. So 18 chapters dedicated to teachings. Similarly, we have the teachings of Bhismadev, an elaborate discussion of Dharma by Bhismadev. So that constitutes a lot of the Itihas also. So these are ancient works and filled with different histories and stories. These epics are also considered to be of a category so that of lesser qualification of people, they can appreciate them. The Vedas need qualification of upper caste, 3 upper castes, but the Puranas and Ithihasas don't require any qualification as such, so anyone can hear them, anyone can recite them, and they get benefit from them. So they're meant for all types of people. But we should also understand that they're non-different from the Vedas. So they're not inferior because the qualification is less for hearing them. Rather, they're exactly the same. Though the qualification to hear them is less, the information or knowledge is exactly the same knowledge. And we see that Mahabharata was written by Vedas. Vedas was the compiler of all the Vedas. So he obviously knew the contents of the Vedas, and he presented that in the Mahabharata. So no difference in the content, but or the conclusion, just some difference in who was qualified to hear or recite the work. So in this way, we cannot say that the Mahabharata or the Bhagavad Gita is less authoritative than the Upanishads or whatnot. So that is the argument, of course, given by Shankaracharya, but we say no, they're equal in authority. So out of that Mahabharata, we get the Bhagavad Gita, which has become very famous because it is a summary of all the teachings of the Upanishads and Vedas. At the same time, it is also very authoritative, being spoken by the Lord himself, and of course recorded by Vedas. So very, very valuable. And besides the Mahabharata, Vedas wrote the Puranas. Here the word Puratanam is used. Here it means ancient. Puratana, I mean ancient work. So there's an ancient history being related here. But Purana is also a category of works. So this refers to the 18 Puranas written by Vedas. They're also quite long. Some of them may be shorter and some long. The Vishnu Purana may be 7,000 verses, and the Padma Purana is 55,000 verses, and maybe Bhagavatam is maybe 22,000 verses or 18,000 verses or whatever like that. So they vary in length, but they're supposed to have 10 topics. That is Sarga, Visarga, Sthana, Uti, Poshana, Manvantara, etc. Mukti, Asraya. So they're supposed to have 10 topics. In a major Purana, the smaller ones may have only 5 topics. So they cover the creation of the material world and how the Lord maintains and guides the world through the Manus and the avatars of the Lord. Basically, that's the subject matter of Puranas. So we have 18 major Puranas and 18 Upa-Puranas or minor Puranas. They're also authoritative. They also do not require the same qualification as the Vedas. So again, the audience is a wider audience, but same authority, as the Vedas. So, of course, within the Puranas, we get the Srimad Bhagavatam. And of all the Puranas, it's considered the Amala Purana, or the spotless Purana, the purest Purana. These works also very, very important because they present the highest knowledge again. So, of course, the Puranas and the Ithihasas are written to in a more understandable way for the common people, and for that reason very valuable. The Vedas are a little more inaccessible, and in fact Vedas wrote the Brahma Sutras to explain the Upanishads, because the Upanishads were difficult to understand, but even the Brahma Sutras are hard to understand. So therefore Vedas wrote the Ithihasas and Puranas. So the conclusion should be the same as Vedic conclusion or Upanishadic conclusion. It shouldn't be different. Vedas is teaching the same point in all of these different works. So the conclusion is ultimately the same. Therefore, we don't distinguish between higher and lower scriptures that are accepted here. They're equal. Of course, the Bhagavatam itself is special, and therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the whole Gaudiya Sampradaya, we give special emphasis to the Bhagavatam among the Puranas. And why? Because it is the conclusion of all the other works. That is, of the Vedas, Upanishads, Brahma Sutras, Mahabharata, and the other Puranas. This is the final conclusion. How do we derive that information? Because this is related in the Bhagavatam itself, where Vedavyas was puzzled or unsatisfied after writing everything, including the Puranas. And then Supreme Lord came, or not the Supreme Lord, Narada came, and he instructed them that you have to write things very clearly who should be worshipped in Kali Yuga. That is Krishna. So you present Krishna as the ultimate object of worship for the people of Kali Yuga. And therefore we have the Bhagavatam as we know it now coming out of that. So this was the conclusion of all the works, the final Purana. So it presents the conclusion of everything, and that is Krishna as tu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the complete form of the Supreme Lord who manifests all wonderful qualities, and therefore he should be worshipped by everybody. So that's the final conclusion. So to reach that conclusion is difficult for some people because they have other attachments. Of course, they may be attached to Karma Yoga, Gyan Yoga, or Astanga Yoga and pursue Upanishads or other Karma Kanda or whatever, or Smriti Shastras with Varnashram, etc. So if they take to Bhakti, of course, more accessible. But even if we take to Bhakti, again, a little bit difficult for some people to accept Krishna as supreme. So they'll accept Vishnu as supreme. So it is a little rare that we get a person who can actually appreciate the conclusion of the Bhagavatam. So its audience is, you say, a refined audience of lesser people because of that. Nevertheless, the conclusion stands as strong. The final conclusion that Krishna is the supreme object of worship, that is, that conclusion cannot be in any way challenged. So that is, of course, the whole theme of the Bhagavatam, to ultimately worship Krishna. So that is presented in the Bhagavatam in various ways, sometimes a little bit indirectly. So we will get all sorts of teachings in the Bhagavatam. So Kapila Dev teaches Karma Yoga and Gyan Yoga and Astanga Yoga as well as Bhakti Yoga. And 11th canto, Krishna himself teaches Uddhava, Karma Yoga, Gyan Yoga, Astanga Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Again, and of course, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita teaches Arjuna, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Astanga Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. He teaches everything. He doesn't say, okay, we're only going to speak about Bhakti. So sometimes it may look a little bit indirect. Here, of course, the question is actually about Bhagavad Dharma, so that will be the main theme. But at the same time, sometimes we do get some other topics manifesting also as say secondary topics in the work. The different illustrations, or say the different conversations, present the topic from various angles, but nevertheless the conclusion is bhakti and finally Krishna in the ultimate sense. So, as we see in Bhagavad Gita, even though Krishna presents everything, then he says, Sarva Dharma Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja. So then he says, just surrender to Krishna, ultimately. So that is the same theme in the Bhagavatam, ultimately, though he presents all these other subject matters and whatever. So we should not be too distracted by the different subject matters, but understand they're also related to the final conclusion. They're related to that theme. So this is how the devotees will view this work. These are not independent discussions with independent conclusions that are final in themselves. They're all somehow related to the final conclusion to worship Krishna. So though we do get discussions of karma yoga, jnana yoga, and astanga yoga, we have to relate these to Krishna somehow or other. So we can do that by understanding that these other processes are for less qualified people who don't have faith in bhakti. So let them do these other processes according to their qualification. Meanwhile, if they get mercy of a devotee, then they can get faith, and with faith, then they can practice bhakti. Whether they're doing karma yoga, jnana yoga, astanga yoga, or no yoga at all, they can also participate in bhakti by having that faith. So, and they are related to bhakti only as, let's say, intermediate steps to bhakti. But we should not take them as causes of bhakti. They don't cause bhakti, except we say indirectly or secondarily. So the main cause of bhakti is mercy of devotees in Krishna. That's the main cause. Other things may be favorable elements that help us, but they're not the main cause. Therefore, all these other elements are there as secondary favorable elements in certain circumstances for the individuals. So the important thing is to gather the proper conclusion, first of all. And that is that we should worship Krishna. That is the main point. And all the other points are there as well as secondary items. So they must be coordinated with the worship and surrender to Krishna. And then there's no problem in executing those things also. So in this way we have to relate everything to the conclusion of the Bhagavatam. Even though the subject matters look a little bit indirect or indistinct or whatever, nevertheless we give them some relationship with the main theme of the work. And in this way we can appreciate the different processes. As well as the processes, of course, we have the other forms of the Lord. So we have descriptions of Varaha and Nrsimha and Ramchandra and the various cantos. So why we need these discussions of Krishna as the ultimate? Because Krishna contains all the qualities of all these avatars. He is their ultimate source, and therefore he partakes of all of the different qualities. So by appreciating Rama's qualities and activities, we can also appreciate Krishna. He also has similar qualities, or Nrsimhadev or anyone else. All these qualities also in Krishna. So whatever is in any avatar is also in Krishna, because Krishna also has some extra qualities. So therefore the processes and the avatars, etc., all we relate to Supreme Lord. Then we get the history aspect, which is actually Ithihasas. So we'll see in the Bhagavatam itself that the history is related from the beginning of the creation of Brahma, and then within the day of Brahma, we get the various Manvantara periods manifesting. And in those Manvantara periods, we get Manus manifesting, starting with Swayambhuva Manu. And he has his descendants, and they rule the earth. So we get a whole line of empowered kings to establish Varnashram and Bhakti, to protect and nourish the human beings. And this takes place throughout the day of Brahma, with each successive Manvantara period. So we get 14 periods in which a new Manu appears and reestablishes or continues Dharma. So this indicates that the Lord makes some arrangement for the jivas in the material world. One is he establishes the Manu establishes Dharma, but then the Manu is also empowered to establish Bhakti, which is the highest process. So in this way, the Lord takes care of the jivas in the material world. So in terms of time, the Lord is always trying to, striving for giving the benefit, the best, highest good to all the jivas in the world. So it continues throughout the day of Brahma with the success of Manus and their descendants. So, for instance, in relation to Swayambhuva Manu, he's the first person around, he's the first Manu, and then he establishes a whole dynasty, and from that we get Dhruva coming out, and Priyavrata. And so we get some very famous personalities arising from his dynasty. So the history, therefore, of the whole day of Brahma is related to illustrate the mercy of the Supreme Lord in directing the world through his empowered representatives, the Manus and their descendants. And in this way we can appreciate the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So the mercy that is shown by the various Manus is a reflection of the mercy of the Supreme Lord, ultimately. Whatever good they do is ultimately, we can trace that back to qualities in Krishna himself. So we can appreciate ultimately the qualities of Krishna through the operations and activities of the various Manus. So throughout the whole lifetime of Brahma, the Lord continues to show his mercy through these different histories. Now, in this particular work, Bhagavatam, the line of Manus continues, and one of the purposes is to show the lineage of Krishna. So finally, in Vaivasata Manvantara period, we have Vaivasata Manu and his descendants, and then through the Moon dynasty, we get the appearance of Krishna. So the dynasties are described up to 9th canto, and then finally Krishna appears, and then whole 10th canto is about Krishna making his appearance and manifesting his activities in this world. So again, the Lord is very merciful because he presents avatars within this world, forms of the Lord, who give benefit to the world. And ultimately, best mercy is when he comes as Krishna and bestows the highest mercy by giving the highest bliss. So all of this is, these are methods of relating everything to Krishna, whether it is the Manus and their descendants or the processes of mentioned in the Vedic literature, or various pastimes that take place among the avatars, etc. All we relate to Krishna. So Krishna is the center of the whole Bhagavatam, and we should never lose focus of that fact.
Well, if I have understood properly, in case of Sri Vaishnavas, except a few alvas, most of them are primarily focusing on Vishnu. In that sense, as compared to various other sampradayas, this Brahma, Madhva, Gaudiya Sampradaya is There is no parallel to it, can we say? There is no parallel to Brahma.
No
Brahma
parallel
to Gaudiya Sampradaya. That's only Krishna and ultimately
Well,
Madhurya
but
Rasa.
we see Vallabhas also worship Krishna as supreme.
But
and
in terms of
Nimbarkas
Madhurya
also
Rasa,
worship-
in terms of Madhurya Rasa, it's predominantly in Gaudiya Vaishnavas.
Nimbarkas are also Madhurya. But at least it's Krishna. So out of the four Sampradayas, two are Krishna and two are Vishnu. But even Madhva Sampradaya, they worship Krishna there, and would it be Krishna?
Again, Maharaj, I wouldn't know much about this Skanda Purana, but wherever we see in many places, a number of places in Skanda Purana, there is a glorification of Lord Hari. So what is it about Skanda Purana? And largely it's about many quotations about the supremacy of Krishna and worshipping of Vishnu, Krishna.
Well, it's technically classed as a Tamasic Purana because it does have a lot of stories about Shiva and Skanda and whatever. However, any Purana, if it has factual information in it, then there's not a problem. So even the Tamasic Puranas will glorify Vishnu, etc. So we can use those quotations also to support our basic premise. So I think probably a lot of these quotations come from the glorification of the Dham or something, Mathura Mahatmya or something, or these various places where the Dhammas are glorified, etc. And we'll find glorification of the devotee, etc., and glorification of Vishnu. On the other hand, those same Puranas will often glorify Shiva as Bhagavan or the Supreme, so we have to be a little careful not to accept all of the information literally. So where there is contradiction to the information given in the Sattvic Puranas, then we accept the Sattvic Purana as authoritative. Where there's no contradiction, we accept those verses. But where there is contradiction, we'll accept the conclusion of the Sattvic Puranas. They have stronger authority, more authority.
We say that the Puranas are divided into based upon three gunas, and ultimately we accept that Krishna is Nirguna, which is above the gunas.
Yeah.
So, what makes a soul? Only a few souls accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What makes that few souls? What quality of those souls make them to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality? It is their gratitude, or humility, or prema, or just the Guru's guidance?
Well, of course, the qualification for bhakti is shraddha, or faith. So if faith in pure bhakti arises in any person, in any guna, then he's qualified for bhakti. So guna is not the cause of bhakti, the direct cause. Now obviously, if you're in sattva guna and you develop faith, it is quite easy to practice bhakti as compared to someone in tamagun who may have a lot of uncontrolled senses, etc. to control. But nevertheless, whether one is in any guna and one has developed faith, then one is qualified to begin the process of bhakti. So the cause of that faith is mercy of devotees. So the mercy of devotees is not in the gunas, and the devotee gives mercy to people in all gunas. So therefore bhakti may manifest in any person, be in the varnashram system, outside the varnashram, etc. And then they become qualified for bhakti, and then they can advance to the highest stage, as indicated by Krishna in chapter 9 of Bhagavad Gita. Anyone can attain the highest goal. So therefore, it is open for everyone, and the qualification is not limited by gunas. So, the Sattvagun Puranas, the main subject matter is Vishnu, but we shouldn't think Vishnu is in the gunas. He's in charge of Sattvagun, but he is in no way influenced by Sattvagun, Rajagun, or Tamagun. But he's in charge of Sattvagun, so therefore they're called Sattvic Puranas because they deal with Vishnu, who's in charge of Sattva Gun. And actually he's beyond the gunas. So we shouldn't think that Sattva Puranas are only about Sattva Gun. No, they're about Vishnu then. And they're about someone who is beyond the gunas, that is Supreme Lord.
Maharaj, we usually find that a Purana is named after the major person being discussed or the major speaker. So now when it comes to Bhagavad Purana, it has always been called Bhagavad Purana. So, in what way did Narada Muni inspire Vyasadeva to modify? I mean, what is that modification which Vyasadeva did?
Modify what?
Bhagavad Purana. We hear that he rewrote the Bhagavad Purana, or he added something to.
Oh, so what he did with the Purana was he made Krishna the subject matter, that Krishna should be the object of worship, not just Krishna as an avatar or whatever like that. And to illustrate how Krishna is supreme by, in 10th canto, showing all of his wonderful pastimes that manifest qualities that no other avatar manifests. So in other works like Vishnu Purana or in Padma Purana, we also get all the avatars, and we get Krishna among the avatars also. But then in those works, it's not that Krishna is supreme and everybody else is beyond that. There he is just another avatar among the others. But in Bhagavatam, no, Krishna is Du Bhagavan Swayam. He is a special person above all the other forms of the Lord. So that's the, main quality of the Bhagavatam. And then we have a detailed description of the pastimes of Krishna, more detailed in the Bhagavatam than we'll find in Padma Purana or Vishnu Purana or other Puranas.
Maharaj, usually we understand that devotees who are practicing only bhakti, they are anyway not qualified for karma. But it is said that we are supposed to practice karma just for loka sangra, that is to set an example to the world. But that is was told in the context where ordinary people were also practicing karma kanda, and if devotees didn't practice it, then it would create a little havoc. But now in today's society, when we see that no one is practicing it practically, then
so you wouldn't have to do it as an example, unless you want to revive the karma, etc. But the other reason is some of the rules are helpful for regulation. So we follow rules of cleanliness, except from Varnashram, rather than have no rules of cleanliness, because we have to maintain the body, etc. So we borrow rules from that and we incorporate that because we do have a material body. So as much as possible, we can incorporate some of those rules and regulate our life through those rules.
Human beings who are not coming in the classification of the three gunas, how they are considered to be. Like people in ignorance, they worship Shiva. Though Shiva is not an ignorant person, he is said to be above the gunas.
Yeah.
But there are some human beings who doesn't even come into the class of ignorant people are taking up ignorance.
Well,
like
they're beyond the gunas. Then there'll be Atmaramas or devotees. Then beyond
the higher side guna, the lower grade.
Then they'll all be in Tamagun.
And others,
Tamagun. It's all Tamagun.